going on, everybody? Victor here with a brand new video. I'm sorry that I haven't been making any videos in a little bit while, but let's just be honest here. We're all dealing with things, especially during this pandemic. I actually started work a little bit last week. I ended up working a lot, and I barely had any time to make videos. It was just a temporary job, so I am back until I get a brand new one, and I can be able to figure out my whole time management deal, so I can be able to make more videos. But it is what it is, because we got another UFC fight night going on this Saturday. It's gonna be back in the Apex Center in Las Vegas without any fans, which is going to be very, very sad. But it is what it is. The fights still have to go on somehow, and we've got a great fight going on in the middleweight division. We've got Edmen Shahbazyan, a 23-year-old with a 11-1 record. He tasted defeat recently to Derek Brunson during his last fight against the 21-6 Jack Hermansson, who's 32 years old. So there's a big age disparity between both these men. Obviously, Jack Hermansson is 9 years older than the younger Edmen Shahbazyan, and Jack Hermansson is also going to come in here with a 3.5-inch reach advantage, which is going to be very, very big. Both these guys are pretty much around the same size when it comes to their height, so it's going to be a very interesting matchup. And obviously, going into this, Edmen Shahbazyan is coming to this fight off of a loss against Derek Brunson, who's been on fire lately, and it's going to be very interesting to see what is the mindset of Edmen Shahbazyan. First of all, this fight was supposed to take place during UFC 262 last week, but the UFC decided to take it off of the card and postpone it a week later, which is very interesting. I have no idea. I would have loved this fight to be on last week's card, because there were some fights on that main card that could have been replaced with this one because of how big and how important, and also how exciting it is at the end of the day, because both these guys are gamers. Both these guys are always looking to get their opponents out of there as fast as they possibly can, even though that's pretty much the obvious goal of every single UFC fighter out there. You want to hit, finish, and not get hit and finish. So obviously you want to get your opponent out as fast as possible, and both these guys like to do that. When Jack Hermansson fought Kelvin Gastelum over in Fight Island, everybody thought it was going to be a close fight. Everybody thought it was going to be a good fight, but Jack Hermansson was able to get the leg lock in there in the first round and end it before the 3-minute mark, before 3 minutes of that fight had even elapsed. So obviously, Jack Hermansson is the real deal, and he did have a mishap against both Jared Cannonier and Marvin Vettori. So obviously he's been a little bit up and down, but he's still one of the most dangerous guys in the middleweight division. And he's got Edmen Shahbazyan, who's the young, hungry lion, who's got a lot of power packing in his hands. Obviously, he was tagging Derek Brunson a lot during that first round, and then obviously he did get hurt towards the end of that first round as well, and had a little bit of an adrenaline dump going in that second round, where it was all Derek Brunson. He was able to finish him via ground and pound, and it wasn't a pretty sight, because Edmen Shahbazyan did take a lot of damage during that fight. That was the most amount of damage that he's ever taken in his whole entire UFC career and mixed martial arts career. If you add that with it, then you got Jack Hermansson, who is another individual who has taken a good amount of damage. He took a lot of it during the Marvin Vettori fight, because it was a 5-round war. Then he took a good amount of damage against Jared Cannonier. He took 0 damage against Kelvin Gastelum. So obviously both these guys have taken a lot of damage during their last previous fights, and they're looking to get another W in their win column to get back into the middleweight race, because there is plenty of movement in the middleweight division. You obviously have Darren Till versus Derek. Yeah, I'm sorry. You got Darren Till versus Derek Brunson, which is going to be a good fight if Darren Till can be able to make it, because Darren Till has had a number of injuries that have postponed a lot of his fights or canceled a lot of his fights recently. And then you also have Paulo Costa, is most likely going to be fighting Jared Cannonier in the very near future. Then you've got Robert Whittaker in limbo right now. So there's a lot of movement. There are a lot of fights being made in the middleweight division, and this is definitely being one of them. If you ask me who's got the edge coming into this fight, I gotta go with Jack Hermansson, just because of the amount of wins that he has. He's 21-6 in his whole entire career, 27 fights in total versus 12 fights in total for Edmen Shahbazyan. So the experience factor is going to go to Jack Hermansson. He's finished multiple guys in his career. He's basically pummeled a lot of the guys in his career as well. And if there's one thing that he can bring into this matchup against Edmen Shahbazyan, it's it's his ground and pound, because he definitely has some of the most legendary ground and pound in the game of mixed martial arts, and he has used it very, very well. Obviously, he was able to use his ground and pound and basically convert it into submissions. I love how he was able to get that submission against David Branch all the way back in Philly a couple years ago. He was able to get the takedown, utilize some of his ground and pound, and go straight for that rear naked choke. Got the finish right off the bat in that first round, which was absolutely crazy. And then he was able to ground and pound. I forget who he ground and pounded, but he was able to get a W via ground and pound, and it was just absolutely spectacular. Like I said, his ground and pound is some of the best in the whole entire sport of mixed martial arts, especially in the UFC and middleweight division. And if he can be able to get Edmen Shahbazyan to the ground, which has basically been done before, Derek Brunson was able to get him to the ground, he was able to TKO him via ground and pound, then obviously Jack Hermansson can be able to do the same exact thing as well. Edmen Shahbazyan is obviously going to have to go in here and basically impose his will right off the bat and show people that he does have cardio, that he can be able to absorb some damage and give it back, that he won't choke under the lights like he did against Derek Brunson. Obviously, he's 23 years old. He was probably 22 years old when he faced Derek Brunson last year, and that was his first main event on a fight night. Definitely a lot of pressure, definitely a lot of expectations for him to be able to get to that middleweight title. He still wants to be the youngest champion in UFC history, surpassing John Jones, but obviously it's still going to be very, very hard at this point. And I feel like he kind of overshot his goals. He's kind of looking past Derek Brunson because of that goal itself. So obviously, if I'm Edmen Shahbazyan, the only goal I'm thinking about is getting this W. The only goal I'm thinking about is beating Jack Hermansson. I'm not looking past him. I'm not looking in any other direction. I'm thinking about him in this fight, and that I'm going to get this W no matter what happens during this fight. And if I'm Edmen Shahbazyan, I'm going to want to take this nice and slowly. Don't overdo it. Obviously, he pretty much got himself tired trying to go for the finish against Derek Brunson. Derek Brunson was able to absorb the majority of the damage and then give it back to Edmen Shahbazyan, who wasn't able to absorb it the same way that Derek Brunson was. So if I'm Edmen Shahbazyan, I'm going in here. I'm taking my time. I'm not going for the finish as fast as I possibly can. I'm patient. I'm moving around at a nice speed. I'm not walking around. I'm not moving around too fast. I'm not moving around too slow. I'm not in front of my target, being in a stationary position the whole entire time I'm moving. I'm cutting the angles because his boxing is very, very crisp. His striking is very nice as well. When he knocked out Brad Tavares with that head kick, it was a thing of beauty, and he can basically do the same thing as well. He just has to set it up. His setups are very, very beautiful, but it also has to do with his pressure. He needs to pressure Jack Hermansson, and if I'm Jack Hermansson, I'm going to meet his pressure with my pressure, and I'm also going to try to see if I can be able to get a takedown and take this fight to the ground. And Edmen Shahbazyan has a lot of power. I say he has probably more power than Marvin Vettori, and if Marvin Vettori was able to knock down Jack Hermansson in that first round, so can Edmen Shahbazyan. So Edmen Shahbazyan is going to have to cut his angles. He's going to have to look for the right moments. He's going to have to be cool, calm, and composed, like I just said, and look for that shot, because he can knock out Jack Hermansson, and Jack Hermansson can definitely take him down. So he's going to have to work on the takedown defense. He's going to have to sprawl. He's going to have to get a crossface. He's going to have to work those inside elbows like we saw last weekend with the Jordan Wright versus Jamie Pickett. Obviously, Jamie Pickett was trying to go in for that double leg takedown because he had Jordan Wright against the fence. So he lowered his elevation, tried to go in for that double leg takedown. Jordan Wright was getting those inside elbows, and basically that's what led to the beginning of the end for Jamie Pickett. Something like that can happen during this fight, especially if Jack Hermansson's trying to go for that double leg takedown against Edmen Shahbazyan. Obviously, you're shoving the head down, you're widening the stance of your feet. That way, it makes the takedown attempt a whole lot harder for Jack Hermansson, and you're working those inside elbows as well. You want to make sure that it's not down, because those are 10-1 elbows, and those are extremely illegal in the sport of mixed martial arts. Just ask Eddie Alvarez and a couple of other people that have committed this in the past. So those are some scenarios that can definitely happen. If you ask me about the speed advantage, you got to give that to Jack Hermansson because he's a very fast individual. You can see how fast and slick that he is with some of the finishes. Like I said, his finish of David Brands with that submission, and then his submission win against Calvin Gastelum, very fast, very slick, and both happened in the first round. Edmen Shahbazyan, he's been able to get people out in the first round as well, but he's going to have to be careful with the sneakiness of Jack Hermansson because he's the Joker for a reason. Obviously, we talk about the Joker in the movies and stuff like that. Joker being the enemy of Batman. Joker being a very slick individual, being able to get away with a lot of terrible things. The Joker, if you have that nickname, it basically means that you're not a funny guy or anything like that, but you're you're conniving and you're basically sneaky and you're able to get away with things that people wouldn't be able to get away with. That's Jack Hermansson for you, and he can basically be able to pull something off unexpected that Edmen Shahbazyan won't be able to see coming, or we won't be able to see coming as well. He's full of surprises, just like a Joker would usually be. That hence the nickname Jack the Joker Hermansson. It's definitely going to be a great fight. I'm absolutely stoked for this one. I don't know why this fight is all the way down on the card that it is. It should be on the main card, but on the looks of it, I think it's the first fight on that main card, and it should be the co-main event for crying out loud. Looking at the other fights on there, there's really not that many notable names, but I guarantee you it's probably going to be a good fight night. Obviously, the UFC is coming back this Saturday. It's going to be main evented by Cody Garbrandt versus Rob Font, and both those guys are lights out individuals who like to knock people out. Both those guys are coming off of knockout victories. So having this type of fight on this type of card, being the first fight on the main card, don't get me wrong, I like it because we're starting off with a bang, but this should be co-main event. This is co-main event material. Both these individuals are very likable guys. They're very well-known individuals within that middleweight division, which is one of the most stacked divisions in the UFC and all of mixed martial arts as we know it. And to have it as the first fight on the main card, that's a little iffy, that's a little suspect, but it is what it is. I can't wait to see it. If you ask me who's going to win, I believe it's going to be Jack Hermansson. Look, Edmen Shahbazyan is 23 years old with a 11-1 record. He only has 12 fights going in there with one of the best in the world yet again. Look at, he's only 23 years old. His last fight was against Derek Brunson, one of the best middleweights in the world. Now, this fight coming up is against Jack Hermansson, who's even more skilled and more dangerous than Derek Brunson. And you're going to put him against him? Come on. The UFC is trying to basically kick Edmen Shahbazyan out of like the top 15 or top 20 of these world middleweight rankings because, come on, dude, that's just ridiculous. After that loss against Derek Brunson, I would have put Shahbazyan against another unranked individual. This is just too much to bite off for Edmen Shahbazyan, which is why I'm going to be going with Jack Hermansson. I believe he's going to get a finish. He's going to be sneaky, and I believe he gets this finish in the second round. Not the first round, the second round. So I appreciate you guys for watching this video. I'm sorry that it's taken so long, but I needed to talk about this fight and a couple other fights that are on this card. I wish I could have talked about the fights in UFC 262, but I was busy. But it is what it is because we are back this Saturday, UFC Apex facility in Las Vegas, Nevada. UFC Fight Night yet again. Later, guys.